Three, two, live.
You're now watching two old farts making noises.
Hey, welcome to the remote show with Michael Maturo.
You must be calling as you've heard about our new web app launch. We're pretty excited about it too. Leave us your name, number, and the best time to call, and we'll follow up and answer any inquiries you may have. Have a great day.
All right, welcome to the remote show, gentlemen. How are you, Stephen? Hi, David.
Michael,
Good morning,
good to see you.
good afternoon, good evening.
Yes. So it's we're back in action. Last time we had Brittany's thing, but we actually recorded it on the Tuesday. So I haven't seen you guys in a week and a half. So
I was just going to see. We haven't seen you since it's been almost 2 weeks. Yeah. So
flying by.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we can make it back. David,
always.
You got the aliens on your
Yeah, they're everywhere. These lizard people are just taking over our social media.
I thought Stephen could tell us about that.
Oh, the lizard people? Whatever you need to know. We play poker on Thursdays. It's very nice. We smoke cigars, play poker, drink scotch, and we have a good time. Talk about taking over the human planet,
Yeah.
They've morphed from being dogs into lizards, I think, for Stephen, but it may well be change.
Well, we play with both.
Medication.
The dog people, we play with the dog people, and we play with the lizard people. And just so you know, there's a book called The History of Skinwalker Ranch. And in the book of Skinwalker Ranch, this is a real ranch out in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, where UFOs and all this crazy stuff happens. The government's been there, whatever. I read the book.
Yeah.
These two police officers, and I've seen their interview, said that they were driving one day at night, and they saw this thing with two red eyes that must have been 7 feet tall. And they got closer, it literally looked like, guy said looked like a dog wearing a trench coat with a fedora, smoking a cigar. And he said, and they stopped the car and turned around to check it out. And he said, when they got there, it disappeared, but there were ashes on the ground. And I was like, awesome. So to me, you just don't know. So I think it's fascinating. And that would be truly remote.
They would say,
You say those police officers were remote working that day. That's for sure.
They were remote something that day. But anyway, Skinwalker Ranch. It's fascinating if you're into UFOs and multidimensional or quantum anything.
Yes,
this is a very interesting place, and I read several books on it. It's just fascinating.
I mean, any sort of alien activity is going to really change the landscape of remote work. So let's get into it.
Well, we do Pluto on the weekends, so
exactly.
Remote back and forth. Jet back and forth, no big deal. Yeah.
Boy, so there were two topics that I wanted to just seed the conversation with today, and the first was the article I sent you from Peer Signal, which I read because they look at 17,000 or so B2B SaaS companies.
Right.
And they look at them all the way from.
Sorry, Michael, could you just explain what a SaaS company is for those?
Yes,
people who are
right. That's software as a service. So that means the software isn't installed on your computer locally. It's like on the cloud. So it's like Salesforce.
Yeah.
It's like now Google does everything on the cloud. So that's all software as a service.
Right.
And Experience.com, where I work as a solutions engineer, also is a SaaS product. So that's why I'm particularly interested in how that's going. The other topic was we talked about this 3 weeks ago. We brought it up, was how does someone new to a remote job bring their fresh perspective to company leadership and their colleagues, which I think is a really important thing for our viewers to know about, because that first year and even those first 90 days are so critical to making an impact on whatever organization you're joining. No, I was going to leave it.
I was just let you go on your own little thing. No, I agree with that. That yes, but once again, it goes back to things we keep talking about. It's the DNA of the company. Like if we hire you and you're a remote worker, we're going to be like, Michael, this is what we expect.
Right.
And you'll be like, oh, that's cool. And then hopefully your supervisor says, but we want more. Like we want you to go further.
That's
right. And I think that's part of it. So it's not just so much you giving a fresh perspective. It's like the people above you going, well, that's really cool. I never thought of that. Or maybe we can try it. And I think that had a lot to do
Well,
with it as well.
No, that's a really good point. I mean, and we've talked about this many times, is that the attitude of the leadership obviously matters more than anything. And that's why when you're looking at what kind of company you want to join, it's really important that you do get to speak to the chief revenue officer, certainly your direct hiring manager, your manager, maybe even the CEO or somebody in the C-suite, so that you can get a sense as to, is this a company that's going to just very clearly delineate what you're doing and you do only that? Or are you going to be with an organization that's looking for more creativity for you to contribute in a different way? So you're right, it does depend very much on the culture. And we'll just presume that we're talking about companies that do welcome that particularly new perspective from new employees. Because I know I certainly appreciate it. Whenever a new person comes to any company I've worked with, I always advise them, be bold, be proactive, and say what's on your mind, because you might notice things that we're doing inefficiently or not well that that we've just taken for granted because we've been there for so long.
Well, and that's, people get complacent, right? It's just like, oh, we did that, or we don't do that, or we tried it, it never worked. And the funny thing is, I mean, use the dentist. Like, I haven't been to the dentist since last century, and I wish I was joking, but I'm not. So I went to the dentist this week. And with all the new technology, like, I like going to the dentist now. It's like I lay back, there's a television on my ceiling, which, that's kinky, but I'm good with that. And then, they're drilling whatever, and they're cleaning, and they're doing, and they have numbing gel now. Back in the day when they would do it, it was just like you grab the chair and go, oh my God. Now it's like, okay, so it really does become, technology changes. Just because you remotely tried something 5 years ago,
That's right.
and a new person comes in and says, let's try this, the same thing today. And you're like, it didn't work. Right, but technology is now 5 years further. So there's a lot more that you can do that you couldn't do. And I think people lose that perspective because they're there every day.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you have, is there such a thing then as a remote suggestion box? Or
That's cool.
because that used to be the thing where people could just put the suggestions in, and sometimes anonymously.
Mm-hmm. Some organizations do that. I've actually seen it more where you speak directly to your line manager, or if you're in a more engineering side or a more technical side, you can drop it in a board where you can make suggestions to the organization, at least to the software side, the product side of it. But I haven't personally seen suggestion boxes per se, but I do think that it takes the right kind of person to be forthcoming and forward and say, hey, maybe we should try doing this a little differently.
But that's because you are open-minded, and you would have to come from, once again, an organization that's open-minded. And that's really a good idea, like having a remote suggestion box. I think there kind of is, like, people send emails in and go, oh, what about this? And they put it on their website. But to really have something where everybody can comment and you can post it anonymously, that would be even better.
Right. And there's a use case for customer experience and employee experience software, which is the industry that I work in full-time besides Bendicoot.com. And in the employee experience world, it's going from annual surveys to now quarterly surveys that are shorter and that leave an open text box to just get suggestions from the entire organization at scale, which is not always the right format. It's not always the format for every comment. But those surveys, those campaigns can be done anonymously or attributed. And so you're basically, employee experience is basically becoming more about, for some companies, creating the platform for employees to make an impact on the company that they're working for in a positive way.
Well, once again, it goes back to innovation.
Yeah. Sorry, Steve. I remember because of the guest you had on, and she was talking about, being excited yourself about the product that you're selling. And it seems to be, to me, a really, really good thing where you always have an opportunity to say something with your name or without your name, because there's still, as much as we try and encourage people to be open, as much as we feel it's an open organization, somebody very close to me, they've been asked to mentor at their work, and after a great deal of debate and personal struggle, have decided not to do it. because they just feel that it's just going to be even more bring other people's anxiety into their lives, where they're trying themselves to be anxious free. So any opportunity, any functionality where, either anonymously or, or if you choose to put your name against it, I think has to be a plus point, because all these companies seem to be looking outwards to what their customers want. But as your guest said last week, a lot of it's to do with, having a good culture within the company, because that itself just flows out into the product, into the service.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's a really good point. And so then what all of this conversation so far is presuming is not just that you have a company culture that is accepting, and not just that the people who we're talking to in this show are proactive people who want to make an impact at the companies they work for, but it's also presuming that they're doing the legwork of getting to know the company with a curious mindset from day one. Because if you're not going out and meeting everybody in the company, or at least people who are tangentially or directly related to your job, depends on the size of the company how you do that. But networking and building those relationships is how you get that information so that you can give back something positively contributed.
Well, that goes like you keep saying, you have to be more than a bystander when you're doing an interview or research on a company. And a lot of people aren't, right? They're just bystanders. Like, oh, I'm getting an interview. And they do the minimal now. I'm going to speak to this guy, go to his LinkedIn page. I'm done. I know enough about the company to pass, but they don't really look, especially if they're remote, what that really means. I know there's all those services you can read about people, what they think of their company and but I don't care what the employees think. I want to know what the customers usually think.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather know the customers go, everyone's nice, they're great, or like, everyone sucks. Well, that's not good. Why? You know what I mean? So I think you have to look at it from different angles, not just like, oh, let's go, do the basics. You've got to go above and beyond, especially today, because there's just too much information out there where if you don't, you're just not actually doing yourself or the company any service.
Yeah. So, Stephen, would you say that one of your processes then, when you're looking at an organization, would be to go to somewhere like Trustpilot, for instance, and just see what people say about the product and about the service, and use that in your decision process?
So when I'm going to do business with somebody, what I'll do is I go to Google reviews, and then I just punch the name of the company in, and I just write complaints and or reviews or and I read everything about it. So going into doing a deal, we already know what the issues are. So it's not like I'm going to listen to somebody across the table tell me an issue. I'm like, I already know, which is good. The flip side of it is, if you're buying a product, I want to know about customer service. I want to know about this. I want to know about everything. And that kind of forms the opinion. Because back in the day, it was like, oh, yeah, the Better Business Bureau, which is a scam. I mean, allegedly. But I mean, it's like nobody cares. I can buy a sticker. People complain. It's no big deal. But I want to know. So what the internet's done, and you can research anything, which is nice. So I can read about it and go, oh, okay. They got 500 good reviews. They have 3 bad ones, and the 3 bad ones are because the customer was impossible. Or if you see a pattern forming. So there's things like that. So whether you're the consumer or you're trying to be the employee, it's good to know that. And then I like the companies that actually respond, not to the positive ones. They'll say thank you, but the negative reviews, they'll be like, hey, this is what happened. And it's like, oh, give me the full story. So I do like also companies that are proactive. I know some are too small to be proactive because, having someone answer everything, which we're finding out with 2 old farts, that's a full-time job, right? And we all have other things. So this becomes a full-time job. So you need to hire an intern that can at least answer or do some investigation and just have someone review it. And I think that all become this new where we're going. But I don't know what's going to happen with the chat AI, whatever it is. That's going to be a whole different thing, I think.
Well,
they'll be answering stuff.
Well, they'll be answering stuff, and they might be posting stuff because people are going to generate artificial intelligence bots. So now you're going to are you talking to a human or are you talking to a bot, talking to an AI online?
Well, the other day I was talking to a bot. and it said, "Hi, I'm an AI bot," and I literally wrote, "Good for you," and it was like, I don't know how to respond to that, and I was like, this is going to be fun. So I was being very sarcastic, and they'd be like, "I don't know how to respond to that." Then I'd ask a real question, and it gave me from the list of answers. I guess it's pre-programmed, and then if it did something, I go, "That's the stupidest thing I ever heard," and it'd be like, "I'm sorry, you feel that way," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, you're stupid." I don't know how to respond to that. I was just like, this is just too much fun. So I killed 15 minutes of my life, but I was so much fun. I just had the biggest smile the whole day. So,
Yeah.
until
Well,
AI gets to the
AI
next
won't
step.
be offended. That's the thing.
No,
No,
right?
but
So it's like old school.
You make a lot of jokes about that, Stephen, and I can
Right.
imagine you doing it and having a great deal of fun doing it, you
Yeah.
being you. But it also helps the AI as well, because all that stuff's
Maybe.
going in. Yeah, it's all getting stacked up. All that data's
That's
getting
true.
stacked up. And of course, this is the whole debate at the moment about what sort of information are you going to get out from all these AI, and it's as deep as the data mine is. So the deeper your data mine, the more valuable information you can offer. I won't necessarily say the correct information, but obviously but everything it's trying to put in front of you, it considers to be of some value.
Right.
And while you're joking with it, it's that all that information is going back into the data well. So yeah. So they'll know who you are in a couple of weeks, for a couple of months, for a couple of years. It's Stephen. He's an old fart.
That's
Don't
right.
worry about him.
Stephen,
No,
you're teaching the AI about you. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I literally will write stuff that's just so absurd that it's going to be like, anytime it has to deal with me, it's like the AIs used to be like, "Oh, it's this guy." So like every supercomputer in the world just has to be focused on this little thing for the next 5 minutes because we don't know what he's going to write. It's just fun to do that. I mean, I don't want to talk to the bot, but it's for a stupid question. I don't care.
Yeah.
But when it goes, "I'm a bot," I'm like, "You are."
Yeah, right.
Well, Daddy's going to screw with your life today. And it's just fun to do. And it's like some of the responses it takes some of them like this.
Yeah.
And then there's others where it's sort of like, I don't know how to respond to this human. And it's like, this is the best.
Stephen is the edge case that all these programmers fear.
Yeah.
Is that he's right on the edge there.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
I mean, enjoy it.
And I'm sure you have a ChatGPT account already.
We have that for two old farts. We've got the Microsoft one. We've got the Google one. We've got everything. Yes. And David is learning how to take over the world, like Pinky in the Brain.
Nice.
So
we're just adding to the data mine at the moment.
We are.
Yeah.
They said it 10 years ago or even 20 years ago, data is the new oil. But now people are really understanding what that means, because I think what a lot of people don't understand is that it's not just about data. I was talking about this with a friend who actually worked in the FBI, and he said it's not just the data that you create explicitly, but it's what you call metadata, which is all the data about data. When you take a photo, it tags what camera you are using and what the resolution is and how big it is. That's all metadata related to that image. And computers can find patterns in the metadata to uniquely identify individual people, even if they don't see what you explicitly create. So it's a whole new world of data. I don't know that we need to go too deep into it today, but we know that it's there and it's happening.
Well, I have a friend that works for an agency that doesn't exist. And we had this conversation back in the late 90s about where this was all heading. And so none of this is a surprise.
Yeah.
This is all very much spot on. It's like there's nothing here that I'm shocked with, surprised with. It is what it is. And I'm like, okay, very cool.
And all those people who opted out, they say, "I've opted out, so they don't know anything about me." Well, they do. They know you've opted out,
right?
And so they can profile you through that.
Mm-hmm.
And all those people who just get, "Oh, I've got all my data." No, they don't have all your data. Wake up, people. You gave it to them for nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you wanted a nice big lump of cake out of the cake shop.
Yeah.
And now you're choking on it.
But there's companies out there that are trying to that you can make money by selling your data. Like they're trying to reclaim your data.
Right.
And I'm sure in about 20 years, that'll be what happens. It's like, well, my data's out there. I can make money.
Health data is interesting because that has a real value as such. So there are companies indeed that enable you to bottle it up and lock it all up so nobody can see it. You can just strip it out as and when you want to. You go to one doctor, he sees one part of your dossier because it's to do with whatever it is you've got an issue with. And other people are just saying, okay, this is all my data. This is what it's worth to you, insurance company, health, drug companies, whatever. And this is what's going to cost you to have it. So,
well, wouldn't that be a little, that sounds like it's getting into that could be a very positive development, because part of the challenge is that if you look at productivity through technology over the past 30 years, I mean, productivity has gone way up while general wages have generally stagnated. And so if you start paying people for their data, then you're basically creating a new economy that people can participate in and benefit from at a more generalized way.
But wouldn't that be an economy of people doing nothing? Because all I'm going to do is sell my data,
let's
right?
hope it doesn't come to that.
That's literally how everyone's going to make money. What do you do? Nothing. I sell my data.
Yeah. But the irony there, of course, is that when people, they'll have their McDonald's price list of how much the data is worth. Right. And then they say, well, don't you want this? I've got this. No, we've already got that. Oh, and what about this? No, we've known that for years. Oh, and what about this? Where I go, where I wander, we know that. You got GPS on your telephone. Numpty, wake up.
Right.
So, yeah, like I said, there's only going to be a very, very small, there's a big movement of, I've got my data, I'm going to sell it, come and get it. Yeah. Right. It's probably only about 5% of what you think that they don't know that there's a bit of value. And that's medical data mostly, because that's all locked up.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's I mean, on the data conversation, just to wrap that up, I think what's really exciting about it is that you have people like the CEO of OpenAI actually talking about the risks and the requirement that we as a society start thinking about, even though it's a little late in a way, but start thinking about the safety and security of how AI and how the data pools that drive AI are going to be managed and legislated and regulated in a way. I think we're just far behind on that. I think our general legislators have no idea even what these technologies are, much less how to regulate them. But you have to hope and you have to try, and I hope people watching this episode maybe think about this, that younger people or people who are just more connected and more savvy with what's going on get involved in the social structures and the political structures that actually have an influence on how we're going to manage AI and the data that goes with it in a more equitable or at least fair way.
But if you think about being a remote worker, it could be an incredible tool. It could enable you as a remote worker to offer so many services for so many different people. Yes. If you could because you wouldn't necessarily have to all your speciality would be in customer service, not necessarily in the product then, because any request that you've got, you could bang that into the AI and it would produce the customer service messages and answers that you need. So, yeah.
That's right.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so back to the remote work. I mean, I want to give more positive news to the world of remote workers out there. I mean, because the tech world and all the financial journals love to talk about how tech is getting hit really hard right now. But we talked about this last time, and the data continues to show this out, is that it's really mostly around the very large companies and the companies that have taken venture capital 2 to 3 years ago that maybe overextended themselves and now have to contract. Because looking at the Peer Signal report, if you look at companies that are anywhere between 1 to 50 million in funding raised, they are still greatly increasing their headcount in the past 3 months. And that's so there's still a net positive that's going on there. And that's why I think people who are interested in technology, even remotely, to use a pun, but even remotely interested in technology, should still actually be pursuing not only the course that gentleman is is coming close to being launched, but also just pursuing the research that goes into understanding where do I fit in this new economy, because there's so many opportunities across sales, marketing, customer success, customer support, the product knowledge, in addition to all the engineering positions if someone is more technical. So there's a lot going on out there, and I'm still very optimistic about it.
Well, as long as you don't work at Facebook, Google, or Amazon that just laid off combined, I guess, a couple hundred thousand people.
10%,
But
12%,
but
yeah.
but what's interesting though is when they say they did that, it's not like they're laying off like the guy, chairman of Goldman Sachs, said they should have laid off people 2 years ago. Like they hired too many investment bankers,
Yeah.
and it's sort of like, guys, when the free money stops, things dry up. And when the pandemic, excuse me, was going to be over, it was going to stop.
It was going to stop.
It's not rocket science. What it is, it's greed. And so the companies that went out and got their, whether it's $1 million or $100 million, or about billions, whatever, and they're like, we need to hire 10,000 more people. Okay.
Right.
But when things slow down, what happens then? Like, I know you're preparing, so it's almost like you have to find a happy medium. And I
Yep.
don't think companies know how to do that. I think companies are all about, it's like the next greatest, I mean this in tongue-in-cheek way, scam in investment banking is going to be the AI chat crap, right? We just went through the blockchain crap. We just went through NFTs. We just went through the metaverse. The AI is the next thing. The Financial Times and the Economist talk about it now all the time.
All the time.
People put money. But one guy wrote, and I've been saying this now for 40 years, if you don't do due diligence, you get what you get. So all these people that the metaverse this or the NFT that, too bad. The same with the AI. Everyone's trying to get the AI chat.
Yep.
Okay, but do a little due diligence this time. Like really see what they've got. Let's not just go, they say they have, let's throw money at it. And that's what they did before. And I think that's the difference. And hopefully the smaller companies, they're smart enough, they take smart money and then they build as they need to build, not build because we've got an extra 50 million in the bank.
You got to
Because
use it.
unfortunately, in today, $50 million, that's a weekend in Vegas. Sorry, that's not money anymore.
Yeah.
Like, until you're getting to like 250 million, that's money. Anything under that, that's just like play money. So, and even if you have a company that just got a VC round for 10 million, you got to think smart.
Well, that's right. And that should be a discipline that it's almost like, do we really have to say it? But yes, it has to be said.
You do.
Do your due diligence.
Yep.
I mean, and this goes for the employees too. I mean, you're taking on, when you work, whether you work for a large company, yes, you say that you're taking a little less risk. Now you're seeing actually, is it really less risk? But when you're looking, whether you're looking at a big company or a small startup, you've got to really do the research on who you're going to work with, what you're actually going to be doing on a day-to-day basis, because some places are going to put you into a very narrow place and some will give you more leeway. Right. And really understand where you fit in a cultural and experiential perspective. Right. So those are just really important points that I think need to get across.
Yeah, it's not all about the ping pong table, the billiard table. I get to bring my dog to work day. And I think, the mommy told you were special group, which seems to be everybody now. That's what they all want, like this work-life stuff. And I go back to what I've always said. There's no such thing as work-life balance. Bullshit. Like full stop bullshit. You work until you're done. And I used to tell my team, you work until your job is done. I don't care if you have to work 5 days straight. Not my problem. Get it done. That's the job you signed for. That's what you get. Remote work just means that if I want to go now 10 o'clock in the morning, go for a run, take my dog for a run, or go have lunch and come back at 2 o'clock, I know then from 2 o'clock to say until midnight, I have to finish this because then that allows me to be a remote worker. That's the job. The job isn't like, oh, it's 5. No, it's not 5 o'clock somewhere. It's you do your friggin' job until it's done somewhere. And I think that's a problem with a lot of remote work.
No, there's a lot of, I think this is all across. It's not just in tech. It's all over the place where people just do not complete the things that they say they're going to complete or do it in the time that they say they're going to do it in. And at experience.com, just as an example, one of our values is over deliver on your promises, which it has to be elevated so that people really think about what they're doing, so that you set reasonable expectations, first of all. And second of all, you actually do over deliver on what you say you're going to do. And that kind of attitude is really what makes in part for people who are going to be the most productive. And if you look at, there's a study out there on the management techniques of remote workers, and either because remote workers gravitate, or independent people gravitate to remote work, or because remote work generates people who are self-motivated and who are more independent, it's actually, you actually should, in this study, require less management of remote workers, because they are going to take the role, they're going to execute it in the way that's comfortable to them and most productive for them, and then they're going to give you the result that you're looking for more reliably than workers who are sitting in an office and maybe not working in the most productive way.
Because a remote worker, and if you're a remote worker, you have to look at it. When I used to travel the globe, right, they'd be like, go do this, and you were gone 3 or 4 months, you were a remote worker, right? And so that's what you do. But what was interesting is what I learned is, not only am I the employee, I am my supervisor, I'm my supervisor's supervisor, and I am literally the chairman, because I have to be responsible for a party of whether it's me and 5 other people or me. And I have to deliver what I was told to deliver.
That's right. So,
and it's the same with a remote worker today. You could be 20 years old and be answering like, hello, whatever, blah, blah. But you're responsible for you and however, but if something you think is going to take 5 hours and you tell someone it's going to take an hour, tell them it's going to take 6. It's okay.
That's right.
I'd rather you tell me it's going to take a day and 20 minutes later you have it done and look like I'm done. What else do you need me to do then? In 20 minutes for me, come back to you and say, where's my stuff? Oh, it's not ready yet. Because every 20 minutes, what's going to happen? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And you're just like, I can't get it done.
I mean, people, and more, maybe more in a remote organization than others, but I think it's generally true, is that people rely or should rely on what you say.
Correct.
People should be able to trust the words that come out of your mouth. And that's why it's so important to set reasonable expectations, because this is what you're committing to other people, and they're planning.
It used to be one of the things that when I was first getting into sales, one of my bosses used to say to me, always add a half a day or a day. Because exactly what Stephen was saying, because you'll always be a hero. And so give yourself the space. If it has to be done by Tuesday, and that it can't be done by then, we'll say, okay, well, it will be done at a certain point of time, and give yourself that space. And the other thing that's important, and I know it's really important to Stephen, because I've worked with him long enough to know that, is that when you reach a particular deadline and you can't achieve it, contact that person immediately, or just as you get up to that point, and fess up to it. Say, look, I can't do it. This has happened. Because what will happen is that he then has a story, if he has to go upstream with it. So, I've had contact with David. He's told me this, and this. But when he gets a call from upstairs saying, hey, what's happening down there? And he doesn't know, he's going to throw you under the bus.
Well, it's not even that. Sometimes you can ask for help. Even as a remote worker, you should be able to there should be a support system where if you're like, I can't get this done, I need 3 other people, that I should be able to reach out to some other people. And I think that's what people also have to understand. You're not an island.
It's actually more the opposite. I actually feel like as a remote worker, you have to do more work in order to, and make more of an effort to network with your colleagues, get to know who's has the strengths and weaknesses and how they're connected to the organization, what influence they have on it, and how you can best work with them. Because it works out better for everyone when everyone makes a little bit extra of that effort. I think it works out better for everybody.
I agree. No, that's the only way you can run, especially if you're a multinational or a multi-state, right? If you're just like everybody's like, it's just saying sitting within 5 miles of each other, it's no big deal. You can have a meeting once a month, whatever. But if you have global people or people that are nationwide, that's a whole different mentality. And you've got to it's a support system. It's like, if you're the newest remote worker, then you need to know that you have 5 or 6 mentors that you can lean on and say, how do I do this? Not that somebody's listening to you on their phone, lack of a better term, while you're learning, but after that, what happens? Like, how do you continue and how do you make sure you improve? And I don't think a lot of companies have thought that through. I think a lot of them are just like, you did your 30 hours of training, congratulations, go. And then, your AI gets me going, what the frig? And it's like, I don't know what to do with this guy. So, and that's it, and I can name a list of companies, which one day we should, for fun, all the companies that suck. And the companies that do it well, we should have like an award. But there's some of them that are terrible. And there's others when you call them, you're just like, and I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, the state of Texas and the state of New York, anytime we have to deal with them, it's even though I may have to wait an hour on the phone to finally get to a person, I don't mind because I can work. The most pleasurable experience for the remote worker, they're very not. If they get disconnected, you know what they do? They call you back.
Call you back. Yeah.
This one lady the other day, we were doing something, we got disconnected. I was like, oh, that sucks. I said, I'll have to call them. And just as I was going to call, my phone rang and I said, hello. She goes, I can't leave you. And I'm like, okay. She goes, no, we didn't get it done yet. I'm like, oh, love you. And I was like, but companies need to, usually when you talk about a state, any state,
It's
customer service, screw them. They're the worst. I don't want to deal. Now I call a state and deal with them, whether it's the controller's office, the corporation secretary, whatever it is, the nicest they'll take, whether it's 5 minutes or 3 hours, they don't care. That's their job, is to make you feel good. So their remote workers get it. What's funny is the for-profits don't get it.
Yeah. Well,
And that's where I'm blown away. It's like, if you for-profits ran like the state, I can only talk about the states we deal with constantly, New York and Texas, you would be worth trillions. Because people would have nothing but praise for you. Because when you get disconnected from anyone else, they don't care. They don't call you back. They don't do anything.
Except
They don't even try to
T-Mobile,
help you.
they call you back.
Right. So T-Mobile, that's a whole, they get an award. You know,
They
I'm
get
just
an
saying.
award. Yeah.
They get an award. But I'm just saying, at some point, we may want to discuss, because a lot of them are remote workers. And I'll say to them, like,
Yeah, they are now.
it's like, I'll ask them a question, go, I don't know. I go, do you have a supervisor? And they go, well, I can connect you. I go, can't you just tap them on the shoulder? And
Right.
there's dead silence, right? Because I go, oh, you're a remote worker. And they're like, I'm like, so you have to transfer me to your
Right.
supervisor, and I'm going to wait online now for 4 hours for them. Instead of saying, my supervisor should be able to like call you back. Like they should be more proactive. And I think if you're a remote worker, those are things you should be suggesting to a company. It's like, let's be proactive. Let's be the company that everybody wants to deal with.
Because it's possible now. I mean, it's
Right.
much more. There's almost no excuse because the technology makes it so easy
Correct.
to have dial back. To have the callback systems, to have CRMs that track all the interactions with your customers, and to just make it easy for people to interact with you through technology.
That is very true. I agree with that 1,000%.
Yeah.
That's what I've been preaching since I was 3. So that's when the earth cooled,
We'll
2 days
keep doing
after.
it for another 100 years, right, Stephen?
Another 14 billion years.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's fun. I love it. So Michael, thank you so much. What else do you want to cover, my friend, or is that your show for today?
I think that's the show for today, but we'll
There
leave
you
it.
go.
We'll leave one question for the next time. Is we
Sure.
covered some of the do's of what you should do as a
Right.
new employee, but let's come back next week with some of the stories about what remote workers and employees should not do in their first, or what they do wrong in their first
Right.
90 days. Because I'm sure.
Oh,
We all
so
have
does that
multiple
mean
stories
does
about-
that mean not photographing your posterior on a photocopier?
You
Right,
can't. You're a
yeah.
remote worker.
Well,
Oh.
they're remote. They can
Well,
do
yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah, you can email anything these days.
That's right.
That's very true, but not mine. It's very large. I would have to. It would be like a terabyte, and it would the system would crash. So
You don't want to do that.
there you go.
Well, thank you,
So
gentlemen.
Michael, it's always a pleasure. We know your fans love the show. We love the show. You can catch Michael here, subscribe and like. And if for some reason you're in the car and you want to know about remote working, you can go to Two Old Farts podcast, wherever you get them. Look under remote work
I
and you
love
will find
discussing
Michael
the
in
world
remote
of
work.
remote work and how to be the best remote worker in the digital age. And I want you to be a part of it. If you have a particular topic you'd like to discuss, email me at michael@bendicoot.com. That's
right.
BENDICOOT.com. See you next time. Nice.
Ooh,
Credits.
it even gets better. There's going to be, oh no, that's the copyright. Oh, bye-bye, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe and like.